Thank you very much, councillors and members of senior staff, members of the clergy and the press. A warm welcome to the Temora Shire Council meeting for the month of May, and I declare it open and advise the Chamber that this meeting is being recorded and will be placed on Temora Shire Council's webpage for public information. And all of us that are present today are reminded that whilst we're speaking, that we're agreeing that our views and comments being recorded and published. And we're also reminded that when we speak that we are, of course, to be respectful to others and use the appropriate language. The Temora Shire Council accepts no liability for any defamatory or offensive remarks or gestures during this council meeting. Pardon me. And now I'm pleased to call on the Reverend Nathan Manwaring, the rector at St Paul's Anglican Church, who will be delivering our opening prayer. And you may use Councillor McLaren's microphone. Thank you.
Our gracious God, loving Heavenly Father, we pray for our representatives in state and federal parliament, Stephanie Cook and Michael McCormack. We pray also for our Premier, Dominic Perrottet, and our Prime Minister, Scott Morrison. Equip them for the demands of their roles. Give them wisdom to make difficult decisions, humility to listen carefully to others, resilience in the face of criticism, and endurance for their long hours of work. And we thank you for the privilege of voting in the federal election this week. We give you thanks for the work of our Shire councillors, council management and staff in preparation for this meeting. Please give each person present here clarity of speech, alertness of mind, patience and wisdom to make decisions in the best interests of the people of Temora Shire. Bless the land of our farmers, that we may receive its produce to sustain our community. Bless our police force, paramedics, fire brigade and SES as they come to our aid in troubles. Bless our businesses, sporting and arts groups, voluntary organisations, aged care facilities and places of learning as they enrich our lives. Bless our medical, nursing and pharmacy staff as they care for us. And bless the work of the Salvos this year with their Red Shield appeal as they seek to provide for those of us in need. We ask this through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thanks very much, Reverend. There's a beautiful, beautiful prayer, so thank you. And you are welcome to go and act as referee at home if you must. The rector's left his 3 kids that are settling a debate. Thank you very much. Let's now go to, do we have any apologies, please? I think we have full deck, Mr. Engineer. We have no apologies. Any declaration of any interest, please? Councillor Good.
I'd like to declare that from Austin Street Awnings matter, I've got a peculiar interest in that my super fund owns a property there, but I don't believe I need to leave the meeting for 4.29 of the Code of Conduct because it's over a general council area.
Yep, thank you, Councillor Good. I'm in the same category as well, so thank you. Go to Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in the confidential part of the meeting, I'll have one. I'll leave the room.
Yeah, no, thanks very much, Councillor Oliver. No further declaration at this time. If not, let's go to the confirmation of the April minutes of Temora Shire Council. It was a councillor that was present care to move that they be received as true and correct. Councillor Good, thank you. Seconder for the motion, please. Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Any matters arising from those minutes, Mr. General Manager, please?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Councillors, let's now proceed directly to your white business papers. And we commence on page 11 with the Youth Advisory Committee report, and I am the chairman of that committee. Councillor Bushell, you're moving that the report is received. Thank you. Seconder for the motion, please. Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Certainly it's a very active youth department, councillors, you can see by those reports. We have spoken to the Director of Administration Finance about perhaps instead of requiring a motion for each of the reports, to perhaps consolidate the reports into the one sort of report for council to consider. That just might make things a little easier for council, but nonetheless, very, very active portfolio. There's no comments or questions. Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just was looking at the great selection of workshops that they had, and just wanted to comment on the resume writing. That they only had 6 people attend, and I just wanted to know whether they pushed it at the high school, like to get kids, you know, something that's important.
That's right. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. That certainly was raised by the committee, and again, they certainly promoted it to an extent, but they did concede that there were extra opportunities, and they will be running this again, because certainly the committee queried why the low attendance, but they did acknowledge that they can make a more of a concerted effort in all forms of promotion to get that message out there. So thank you very much. Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to make a comment about the Lads 11 that we had at the railway station.
Oh, yes.
There were only 8 of them, but I tell you, 8 or 9 I think there were, but they made a lot more noise than what 11 would have done, and possibly about 111. It's very enthusiastic type of fellas, and very hard to manage, I think, and I think Cassie done a really good job. My patience was rather stretched, but no, certainly Cassie performed very well. And she was, after they left us, they were going into the kitchen area to prepare a lunch. So I don't know how that got on, but I'd never heard any fire sirens, so I guess everything was fine. So thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you very much, Councillor Oliver. Now, they're doing a great team, the officer and her assistant, that's for sure and certain. Councillor, if there's nothing further on the Youth Advisory Committee report and its recommendations, someone prepared to move that the report and recommendations be adopted, or is there an alternate? Deputy Mayor, thank you. Second for the motion. Councillor Oliver moved and seconded. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Let's, councillors, go over to page 34, the minutes of the Signage Committee, and Councillor Judd is the nominated chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, we had our signage committee meeting. There was one main item on the agenda, request on Temora West Public School in regard to trying to get better street signage on Truscott Street, especially on giving directions to the school. And I'll move the report be received.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. You're moving that way. Is there a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Councillor Good. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillor Judd.
Yes, there's one, we had the motion that the signage, and the engineering works manager has been given the task of investigating more appropriate signage in the location and report back to a future meeting. And then we had a couple of items in general business that were covered, and they're indicated there. And that's about all happened in the meeting.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. And on behalf of Councillor Irvine and myself, we thank you for accepting the nomination as chairman of the subcommittee as well. Councillor Irvine, do you have anything you wish to add as member of the committee? Covered. Thank you. If there's no further comment or discussion, is someone prepared to move that the Signage Committee minutes and its recommendations be adopted?
Move.
Councillor Judd, you have moved that way. Thank you. Second, Councillor McLaren. Moved, seconded. Further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. And declare that motion carried. Thank you very, very much. Let's go over to page 43, the Assets and Operations Committee meeting minutes, and I was the acting chairman in the absence of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair. Very busy meeting as well, but a really, really good one also. So is someone prepared to move that the report is received? And Councillor Good, thank you. Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. The report, councillors, is there for your comment and consideration. Is there any comments, questions? If not, I go to Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just in regards to item 4.2 on page 50, were we writing to the person corresponding with council to advise them of that decision as well?
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Good point. I understand that would be a matter of course, Mr General Manager.
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So thanks, Councillor McLaren. So councillors, you have the Assets and Operations Committee report and its recommendations there. Is someone prepared to move the adoption of those, or is there an alternate? Councillor Irvine.
I just wanted to ask a question in relation to the mobile stage stuff.
Well, Councillor Irvine, you did have, I was fairly generous at the committee meeting, but if there's something new that you'd like to add?
Oh, there was just a follow-up on the GIPA request and the parameters of that was touched on. And the information officer was just going to check the if any dates applied to the request. I just wanted to see if that had been followed up.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. But the GIPA request you've submitted as a citizen, so it's nothing to do with council. So you can take that up with the officers as Mr Irvine at a later date. So, thank you. Anything further, Council, in the Assets and Operations Committee? If not, is someone prepared to move the recommendations and the report, please? It was the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Good, moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried, and thank you. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's now go over to page 71, the minutes of the Economic Development Visitations Committee, and Councillor McLaren is the chairman.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'd like to move the report be received.
Thank you. Councillor McLaren has moved the report is received. Second for the motion, Councillor Oliver. Thank you. Moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillor McLaren.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. There were no actual items in the open Economic Development and Visitations Committee meeting, so we adjourn to confidential. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillors, is someone prepared to move the report and recommendations of Economic Development Visitations Committee? Thank you, Councillor Bushell. Councillor Judd, moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And thank you very much indeed. Councillors, over to page 74. Delegates' reports. Do we have any delegates' reports, please? Well, I'll start while you can reflect. Councillors, the sports awards, again, unfortunately still reeling from COVID, and that's why there are very minimal nominations in various categories. However, we'll be having a smaller more intimate ceremony in the Narrabri room at the Temora Services Memorial Club on Wednesday the 15th of June, which is our normal meeting night, but that event will take place then, where we can acknowledge those that have achieved great things in some very trying circumstances, with COVID still having lingered over the past 12 months. Just to let Council know also that the General Manager and I will be attending, we'll be in Sydney again next Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The New South Wales Country Mayors Association are hosting a health forum where the Minister for Regional Health, Bronnie Taylor, will be present, as will the Shadow Minister for Health, the Honourable Ryan Park, the CEO of the Rural Doctors Network, and several others that are involved in that health space. So they'll be on a panel, and hopefully from that the country mayors will determine some potential ways forward. But that's something that we're very much looking forward to. And then, of course, REROC Board and the Riverina JO Board will be having a workshop on Monday the 30th of May, and that will be to consider options to present back to our member councils about one organisation. And so I think it's fairly important, councillors, that reiterate we have a new council. I certainly know what the former council felt because of this taxi. I certainly am aware of what the former council felt in relation to their views in relation to REROC and Riverina JO, and I know it's certainly the JO is new to some of our new councillors, but the Deputy Mayor who sits on the board as Temora Shire Council's rep on the Riverina JO, he and I need to know our council's, I suppose, council's position in relation to where they stand. And certainly the last time we looked at this, you may remember we decided to go to I suppose a beefed up ROC, which was a company limited by guarantee as opposed to an incorporated body that REROC is currently. And the state government prevented us from doing so if we wanted the reimbursement of the emergency services levy. And we had to stay in the jail for 2 years, and that's falling due very soon, Mr. Deputy Mayor, I think. I can't remember exactly, the June, July or something, yeah. And the previous council strongly supported that position. So a council, in principle, happy for us to re-endorse that view, or is there an alternate view? Any comments? Councillor Good.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I don't see the point of having two organisations that basically duplicate each other, wasting time and money, and I think we should just go back to one organisation.
Thanks, Councillor Good. Other comments, or Councillor Judd?
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree with Councillor Good. I think it's when you read the report there, you can't see what benefit really the JO's been achieving still, and I think better off going back to one organisation.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. Mr. Deputy Mayor, do you have any comments?
Only back to two previous speakers that, yeah, it's ridiculous running two organisations. They do differ in what they're handling, but there's no reason why they can't be all everything can't be under one umbrella. Yeah, it's just the issue is knowing which way it should be going, or where one consensus on where how it should go forward.
Thank you. Councillor Good. I beg your pardon, Councillor Oliver.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I agree with all the previous speakers. And I think if former councillor Winky was here, we would also advocate one organisation. So, It's just a duplication, waste of money. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor. I suppose that, well, Councillor Judd, you touched on in relation to the JO. It certainly was the previous council's view that the JO was not proving itself worthwhile. And of course, we've tried for 4 years to make it, certainly in terms of advocacy and lobbying, it's certainly, I think, been helpful, but it could be argued REROC were doing that anyway. But at the end of the day, the JOs are going to fall if there is not the recurrent funding given to them to run them, because of all the governance and the structures around the JOs. It is very overwhelming, and excuse me, particularly when you're paying nearly $8,000 for an audit, and I think that'd be caught up as well, the JOs in the new ARIC, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Essentially what they've done is they've imposed the same restrictions on the JOs as they have on council. So yes, you need an ARIC. You know, you've got to adopt the full suite of programs, code of meeting practice, code of conduct,
Policies.
all the rest of it, all the policies. It's a very expensive beast to run, even to the extent where they tell us what we need to pay staff to run it. So it is, you know, I mean, we've fought long and hard and spoke against the fact that they've gone down this track. They could have, it was a really good idea, and they could have trimmed it back. It would have been a wonderful thing for local government, but they've made it another council, essentially, or a county council.
Thank you. Councillor Judd.
I took the trouble of reading the minutes of the last JO meeting and the number of pages of minutes, and I could not find one motion of substance that was vital to the running of the show. So.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. I mean, look, I have to say there is, you know, there's working parties, the General Manager and the Deputy Mayor sit on the governance and operations and, you know, but yeah, we take your point. And if we took a straw poll of the new councils today, I believe it would be all but one, maybe two, would want us to beef up the ROC, as we suggested before, that have it as a company limited by guarantee. That's as it stands now, is how I'm reading it. So, but generally, what we're feeling is that council are very supportive of the ROC, of REROC, in terms of value for money, but the principle of one organisation we strongly support. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And council, just to let you know that the new Temora District Hospital Steering Committee continues to meet, and it's certainly going to be a lot of work, but it's very exciting, and this is the first part of the journey, and we'll continue to keep council informed. And again, thank you to all those that were able to meet with the consultants recently. That was terrific. It was great. I took them out for dinner recently, and they were just commenting about how fantastic it is, just how well engaged that, you know, council is and our community are with this process. And yes, we're only early stages, but yeah, they're very impressed. So that's all I had. Any further delegates' reports? Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Women's Network Group were going to hold an event this Saturday. Booked it ages ago, and then someone came in and took our thunder with the election. So we've postponed it to mid-July. So a lot of the people that were coming to do stands with the election said no. So that was the reason why we postponed it. Now, I just wanted to say congratulations to Rotary for their fundraiser they had over at the Town Hall. They had a film at the theatre and used the foyer, and what a great space. It was packed out and it was a great night, so if you'd pass on the congratulations, Nigel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Further delegates' reports. If there's no further delegates' reports, we proceed over to page 75, the Mayor's report for the month of April. And there's recommendation, page 78, that the Council notes the report. Councillor Reinhold, Deputy Mayor, moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Now, let's go over to page 79, staff reports. Motion to receive staff reports. Councillor Good, thank you. Councillor Bushell, second. Moved, seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Let's go to page 80, the General Manager's report, 11.1, calendar of events.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pretty lean month this month, and only the calendar of events in my report is there for Council's consideration.
Thank you. We just have to take the 5th of May out. So, councillors, in relation to our scheduled tour of inspection of the Shire, obviously the timing wasn't ideal, so we'll be looking to reschedule that at some point. I know there's a school of thought that maybe we could do it the latter part of the year, or in fact the first quarter of next year. So we'll talk about all of that with you perhaps the next committee day. Councillors, there's a recommendation there on the bottom of page 80 that we note the report. Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Oliver, moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Now, let's go over to page 81, Engineering Services Report. And we have 0 to report. So thank you very much for that. Now, doing lots of great things behind the scenes, our engineering department. Let's go over to page 82, the Environmental Services Department report, 13.1, Village Flood Study. The Director.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Report is as written, just summarising the meeting held on the 10th of May with our flood consultants. It was quite an interesting and very thorough presentation, and the report is to adopt their findings.
Thank you. Councillors, there is a recommendation there for you to consider, or if there's an alternate, or is there some other comments or questions in relation to the report? Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I attended that briefing. It was, as Director said, it was a very thorough presentation, and I'm glad that it's reached a stage so we can, once we adopt this motion, can now move on to the next stage of that risk management plans from then on. So I'm happy to move the recommendation.
Thank you, Councillor Judd. You're moving the recommendation, page 82, that Council adopt the Area Park Springdale Flood Study for May 2022. Seconder, thank you, Councillor Bushell. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? I know, councillors, that this is a very important issue to all of us in the chamber, these flood studies, certainly for our villages and the township. So well done to all involved with the work done to date. There's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Nothing of an urgent late nature from the Director of Environmental Services?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Now, let's go over to page 83.
You didn't ask me.
Oh, sorry. Oh, I am terribly sorry. Normally you'd go. Councillors, we go over to the Administration and Finance Department report, 14.1, the draft fees and charges for 2022-2023. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Fees and charges are as presented. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Madam Director. And councillors, I do commend you all, and for those listening, councillors have worked very hard together with our senior staff at several workshops to tease out fees and charges, and of course, more broadly, the various plans, which include the operational and delivery plans and the budget. And so we have worked hard to tease these out before. So councillors, there is a recommendation there on page 83 for you to consider, or if there's an alternative. Deputy Mayor. The Deputy Mayor?
Move the recommendation, Mr Mayor.
Thank you. So the Deputy Mayor has moved the recommendation that the draft fees and charges for 22-23 placed on public exhibition for 28 days. Seconded, Councillor Reinhold. Thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? Just in further discussion, councillors, that as those that were in attendance will remember that we are teasing out the lease of the Temora Medical Complex. So that's being done, and thank you to Councillor Good for his assistance. So if there's no further discussion, we'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, we now proceed over to page 96, 14.2, councillor fees for 2022-23. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report's as written. I'm happy to take any questions. And the 2% increase has been factored into the budget.
Thank you, Madam Director. Councillors, I know that certainly last year that the previous council, they did not take up this fee increase for varying reasons, but particularly because we were having a very, very tough time in terms of the budget. However, I certainly know that the workload of councillors is, well, I would say, perhaps unprecedented. But again, this is a matter for you, but I do thank all councillors that have analysed this along with everything else in this budget, and you've been questioning, querying and torn between what to do. However, I know that council certainly are in the middle of the pack in terms of the remuneration that we receive. We're certainly not on the high end by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's important that our community know that this has been a matter that all of us have been considering at length. Now, the Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, and if this budget was a one-off budget where for some reason other things were be tough, I'd certainly be behind not taking the 2%, but I think in reality this is going to be the future of budgets unless something changes. At the end of the day, we don't get really reimbursed a lot as it is for what we do. So I'm sort of behind taking the 2% rise.
Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. Councillor Judd.
I'll second Councillor Sinclair's motion that we adopt the recommendation.
So that's a motion, is it? It is now. So the Deputy Mayor is moving the recommendation on page 96. Councillor Judd has seconded that.
Did I jump the gun?
That's all right. Councillor Judd.
No, but I agree. As we took a pause last year, I think it's appropriate that we get back in line this year. I take a point over, and I'll take it to page 114, and it bugs me that you see there a rural council, which we are, sounds as though we don't do much at all. You read that compared, you know, and I did university studies a few years ago, and one of the subjects was comparison of local government in around Australia. And it was kind of obvious that it doesn't matter what size council you are, you still got the same amount of red tape and regulations and bookwork to do. So, you know, whether you're, you know, a place like Wagga gets more than double what, you know, allowance we get, yet, you know, they don't do any more work than we do. And that sort of bugs me, and I think, and to see this, you know, little couple of lines there saying that we hardly do anything in a rural council is, really gets me. So, anyway, that's my beef for the day. But, yeah, so anyway, I'll support the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor Judd, and I have to say I agree with what you're saying there. The way that it reads, just to the ordinary Joe citizen would think, yeah, they don't do a heck of a lot at all. But you're right, and that's why I'm very grateful to every single councillor for the work that even this new council has done already to date. It's just phenomenal, and normally, as you would know, that I like to try and save us money wherever we can, but we've got to be realistic. We've got to be realistic at the same time. So we're in your hands. We have the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, has moved a motion which has been seconded by Councillor Judd that the proposed fees be adopted for the 2022-2023 financial year, which are already contained in the budget. Is there any further discussion? Further discussion? Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, there wouldn't be a person sitting in the room that does it for the money, and the budget is pretty crook. I'd just say we forego it again this year and look at it again next year and see how things are.
Thanks very much, Councillor Irvine. Further discussion on the motion that's before us, Councillor McLaren.
This was just an aside. I was going to suggest we perhaps write to the Local Government Remuneration Tribunal and invite them out to have a look-see out here at a rural community and see the limited services that we do.
Well, I think that's a marvellous idea, Councillor McLaren. I really do. And if the mover and second wanted to add that as an extension to their motion, I'd be happy to receive it. Or, so the Deputy Mayor and Councillor Judd happy?
Yes.
Thank you. So we've added that on, please. An open invitation. Yep. Okay, so is there any further discussion on the motion? If there's no further discussion on the motion, I'm assuming, Councillor Irvine, you're not moving an amendment? No? Thank you. Look, Councillor Irvine, this is where I was very torn, because my initial reaction was red pen, no, we're not taking it in my view, but when you're analysing things, yeah, it's very, very hard, and it's also, you think of those that follow on from us, you want there to be reasonable remuneration. It could be a very, very big catch-up as well, you know, if we didn't take this. And I think the Deputy Mayor made a good point in relation to that we're going to find ourselves, all councils, particularly rural, regional, in challenging budgetary circumstances going forward. But it's been moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'm going to put the motion. All those with that opinion, please say aye. Aye. To the contrary, no. Is there any noes? Yes. So Councillor Irvine, Councillor Oliver have their vote recorded. I declare the motion carried. Thank you. Let's, councillors, now move on to page 115, 14.3. The quarterly budget review. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The QBR is as presented, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, any comments or any questions in relation to the quarterly budget review? If not, there is a recommendation there on page 115 that we adopt that quarterly budget review, or is there an alternate? Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Councillor Oliver has moved the recommendation. Is there a seconder for the motion? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor has seconded. Councillor Sinclair moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's now go over to page 127, 14.4, the draft operational plan delivery program for 2022-2023 to 2025-2026 and long-term plan for 2020-2023 to 2031-32. The Director of Administration Finance.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The budget papers are as presented and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. Councillors, again, well done to you. If there's been at least 2 workshops that we've had in relation to various integrated planning reporting documents, which of course includes the budget, and I'm very, very proud of this council under some very, very tough financial circumstances that we find ourselves in through no fault of our own, that we're there as it stands in the draft budget, budgeting for a surplus of just under $85,000. Still, at the same time, with a very significant capital works program as well, which is something that I think we should be proud of to put out to the community if that was the will of council. And again, the staff led by the Director of Administration and Finance frankly have done an outstanding job, and all directors and managers that have had input into this budget for councillors to consider. It seems to get tougher every year, but I'm just so proud that everyone gives 100% trying to balance finding savings, being fiscally responsible with also getting things done on the ground. And I think we get it reasonably spot on. So thank you, Madam Director, and to your team on behalf of all of us. So, councillors, there is a recommendation there for you to consider on page 127 that we do place this planning documents on public display for 28 days. Councillor Good?
I'll move that way.
Thank you. Councillor Good has moved that way. Seconded Councillor Bushell. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much, and we look forward to receiving some comments and hopefully formally adopt the budget in June. So again, thank you, Madam Director. Let's go over to page 198, 14.5, the Regional Connectivity Program. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The report's as written.
Thank you. A bit disappointing, councillors, obviously, that we didn't get this program up. However, we just keep persevering because both the state and federal governments have money available on a fairly regular basis. I'll go to Councillor Good. Sorry, Councillor Good. You're right.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Reading the report and driving around, because I do a fair few kilometres, and knowing where black spots are, and they're quite regular, the fact that they're only financing 7 in this period is disappointing, and it seems more that it's used as a promotional tool rather than really having the drive to get rid of these black spots. And it's just in our shire there's plenty of black spots around, but 7 in the state is just not good enough.
No, thanks very much, Councillor Gooden. We can't argue. I know that both federal and state government allocate funds, and some will say it's the responsibility of this one or that one, but you give credit both to state and federal governments for allocating funds, but in the scheme of things, you'd think today that communication is a basic everyday service, and I actually sort of like it when I'm talking to our federal member and state members for Riverina and Cootamundra respectively, and when they conk out due to black spots, it reminds them. But we've just got to keep advocating as we do, and certainly through REROC we have, as you know, that map. All councils have submitted that, so every single year we send those lists to federal and state governments in relation to black spots, coupled with what councils individually do to advocate for themselves. I go to Councillor Judd.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. Yes, I agree with Councillor Good. Disappointing that the Cedar Riverina didn't even get one project up. But I'm having another beef now. I go back to many years ago when particularly it was the federal government at the time, made a decision on, it was called competition policy, where they tendered for the mobile phone coverage on the highways. And what do? They go and give like a new highway to Vodafone, right? So they've got a good tower out at Alina, which would cover, comes in the back of Marul and Area Park, but if you're on Telstra, you can't get it, you know. So why do that different types of signal being built in the first place? I don't know. You know, now if they kept it at one type of phone signal, would have been right. Wouldn't be trying to go back and fill a lot of these black spots in, but that's where the problem was. And just there is coverage there if you're on Vodafone, if you're going down the highway, but not on Telstra, you know. So anyway, that's my other beef for the day.
No, thank you, Councillor Judd. You're certainly entitled to it, and what you're saying is just plain fact. So thank you. I go to Councillor Good.
I just move the recommendation be moved.
Thank you. So you're moving that we note the report.
Yes.
Thank you. Seconder, please. Thank you, Councillor Oliver. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion to. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Nothing of an urgent, late nature from the Director?
No, thank you, Mr Mayor.
No, thank you. You had a busy time, Madam Director. Anyway, all of us appreciate it. Let's go to page 199. We go to correspondence and 15.1, the Community Events Program correspondence, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. As Councillor aware, Mrs McKenzie spoke on this earlier in the meeting. Council may do what they wish, but I'd suggest it be referred to the, they'll need to make a submission, but it'd be referred under the discussion for the Reconnecting New South Wales program.
That makes a lot of sense. So someone prepared to move that way, that we thank you, Councillor Good, that we refer it, and the Deputy Mayor, thank you, seconded the motion that we write to Mrs McKenzie and invite her to make a formal submission to our community events program. Further discussion? I must say it's very, very unique, and I have to say it was good to see everyone engaged by this very, very unique way of honouring Marie Norell. Is it Marie Norell or Marie? Marie Norell, I beg your pardon. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Over to page 201, 15.2, the Area Park B&S Ball, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. The Area Park B&S Ball are requesting the use of the stage, they've got the old stage there, but I did speak to them. Either stage will thereafter for the 29th of October 2022 for their annual event.
Thank you. I think Councillor Judd, the older stage might be more appropriate. No, we won't. This is a family show. Councillors, you have a request there, and we've got to give credit, as I know we do regularly, to the Area Park B&S Ball Committee. The amount of money that they raise, not only for Area Park but for wider Temora Shire, it's overwhelming. Councillor Judd.
Yeah, I'd support your comments, Mr Mayor. Every year they've had a ball, the following year they've distributed about roughly
So then I'll take it off.
Sorry.
$30,000 to the community, and unfortunately, the last 2 years there hasn't been a ball, and that money's been missing from the community, so it's certainly been a big loss. And we do hope that they can get going this year. They've I did hear at the annual meeting they had a good attendance with over 30 people there, so hopefully it'll be go this year and they'll go well.
Thanks very much, Councillor Judd. Councillor Bushell.
I just want to note too that our microphones are turning
Playing
off.
up.
Yeah.
Oh,
When
so I
someone
thought you...
I moved and then Councillor Judd took one away.
Okay, so we have issues with the microphones. Well, thank you, because I thought you must be bumping them.
I think we've just fixed the problem. The settings had been adjusted, sorry.
Oh, thank
We'll see
you.
how it goes now.
Thank you, Madam Director. Thanks, Councillor Bushell, for drawing that to our attention. Now, did you wish to comment on the B&S Ball report?
As a former attendee, I'd like to make the motion that we appease
Accede
their
to the
request.
Thank you, Councillor Bushell, always supporting community events. It's great to see. Now, this is interesting. That's not fixed. No, our two man's not here. Okay, so I wonder what will happen if I turn my... Councillor Irvine. Oh no, here we are.
Can I ask through the mayor
Yes.
to the general manager, what's our OH&S status with the old stage at the moment, please?
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. The General Manager.
The old stage is still okay. I mean, it's like anything. With safe working method statements of, the exposure, I guess, is falling off the stage, or that sort of thing. There's a bit of lifting, but as long as they follow the instructions, it's okay.
Thank you, Mr. General Manager. Thank you, Councillor Irvine. But just further to that, as an extension, I've always understood that it's Council's intention to divest ourselves of it as at an appropriate time. General Manager?
That's correct, and I think at the Assets and Operations Committee meeting the other day, we decided we'd keep it for 12 months and then make the decision then.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. Now, Councillor Irvine, were you seconding the motion of Councillor Bushell's?
What was that, to accede to the request?
To accede to the request of the old stage.
Well, I'd just like an amendment that they be given the choice on either stage and make a decision as to what suits their requirements most appropriately.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to go back to Councillor Bushell, whether you'd like to amend the motion to suggest that offer either the new or the old stage to the B&S Ball Committee.
Yeah, and I'll accept that amendment.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you. So Councillor Bushell, Councillor Irvine have moved that Council offer both or either the new or the old mobile stage to the Area Park B&S Ball Committee. Further discussion? Councillor Oliver?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. The letter says that they're only regarding the hire the old mobile stage. I don't know.
That is
what
true.
they're asking for? Or?
That is true, Councillor Oliver, but the General Manager spoke to them today to seek clarity for Council, and they evidently indicated that the old or the new is what Council so desired.
In the letter.
Yes, yeah, that's true. That's true. So we have a motion before us that Council offers the new or the old stage to the Erie Park Ball Committee, or B&S Ball Committee, because they have a debutante ball as well, on the 29th of October 2022, and the motion's been moved by Councillor Bushell and seconded Councillor Irvine. Is there further discussion? Councillor Judd.
If they take the new stage, will our staff be going out at 3 o'clock in the morning to close it down?
Thank you, Councillor Judd. The engineer's a party animal, so...
No, they won't.
No, right. The answer is no, right. Thank you, Mr General Manager. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you very much. Shall we go over to page 203, 15.3, the Campervan Motorhome Club, the General Manager.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. This is correspondence from the CMCA Solos Group. I'm assuming this went out to most local government bodies, or a number of local government bodies, because it's not specific to Temora, but we've had a look at this, and we really don't have a facility. The only one in town that would be able to really deal with the number of people we're talking about would be the showground, and it may be more appropriate that we refer them to the showground, and then if they did make a submission, then they might come back to council looking for assistance there, but we certainly don't have a facility that would handle that.
And they're not really specific, are they, in terms of... but it probably does make sense if... I'll go to Councillor Bushell.
That was going to be exactly my motion, that we refer it to the Temora Showground Trust Committee, or whatever they're called, and see whether their date's actually available and go from there, because, yeah, I couldn't see that anywhere that we run could hold them.
No. Thank you very much, Councillor Bushell. So I'll take that as a motion that Council refer the matter to the Temora Showground Trust, of which the General Manager is on the board. Is there further... seconder for the motion, the Deputy Mayor, thank you. Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Councillor Irvine.
Just that we note that council supports the concept and will offer any assistance. I will consider any requests for assistance that might be forthcoming.
Yep. Yes, no, thank you, Councillor Oliver, Councillor Irvine, rather. And I'm... is that something that the mover and the seconder would like to incorporate into the motion? Or what's your thoughts?
Not so
Councillor
much
Bushell.
highlighting the fact that we're open arms, but you refer them to the showground, and by all means, if we receive something, then
You consider it on its
consider it
merits?
then, but I don't like it in the motion, no.
Okay, thank you. So the seconder, okay, thank you. But again, yes, if they did write, then council would consider that as a matter of course. Okay, moved and seconded. If there's no further discussion, I'll put the motion to you. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. And I'm sure, Councillor Irvine, in the wording of the letter, now that that's passed, that the General Manager will take those comments on board. Thank you. So let's now go over the page to 216, 15.4, Big River Entertainment, the General Manager.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This is something an event that Council's been supporting for some time, that's been run by Craig and Ros Giles. It's when they first started, we offered assistance through, and that assistance has continued through the years. As you can see, what we've done there in previous years, we've provided a cabin out at the airport for the entertainers, and also powered sites at the caravan for the entertainers as well, and we've allowed them to camp at the recreation ground, and that's what they're requesting again.
Thank you. So the actual dollar value is about $6 7.5.
That would be excluding the recreation ground
Yep.
component.
Thank you. And I think the Director of Administration and Finance, you had something you wanted to inform Council of?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So Council approved or resolved to donate back 50% of the fee last year, but then the event was cancelled due to COVID.
Thank you very much. I'll go to Councillor... Oh, it's happening again. I'll go to Councillor Judd.
Question to the Director. Is this an event that could be transferred to the community events program or not? I mean, we suggested it to Mary Gilmore Festival, and that's all.
Thanks, Councillor Judd. The General Manager.
Yes, thank you. The only problem with that is that this is a full charge event, and it would need to be restructured for that to occur, because you couldn't call it a low cost or free event.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor Judd. Councillors, your thoughts? I go to Councillor McLaren.
Is it appropriate that we refer this to the Economic Development Manager to see if the event can be remodelled to qualify for the grant, given that it's a reasonably significant grant? Save it being unsubscribed fully.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. It'd take a fair bit, wouldn't it? Because it's part of it's a business, as well as benefiting the Shire. It's also a business activity as well, as I understand. General Manager.
We can certainly do that. Bring it back.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren.
Yes, I just wanted to cover that issue, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. If it does, it does.
Would you like to move that direction that
Yes.
that Council make representations to Big River Entertainment with the view of applying or submitting a suitable application to the what do we call it? Yeah, sorry, I'm just getting some advice here. The General Manager.
I just want to clarify. So we're taking it back to them to see if it can be restructured in such a way, and then if not, then they would bring it back to the next meeting of council.
So whatever happens, it'll be brought back anyway. Yeah. That was my understanding.
Do they need some? Is there a time issue for them, or do they need?
It's in
to know?
November, but
Yeah.
so it's in November. So I would think that it'll be right, wouldn't it?
It's in that.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, Councillor McLaren, you're moving that we make approaches to Big River Entertainment, essentially to have discussions about whether they can restructure their event to comply with, and that's a long-winded way of putting it, but comply with making a submission for our events grant, whatever that program is called. So you're happy to move that direction? Seconder, Councillor Bushell, thank you. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? And just remember, if this motion is passed, whatever the response is, council will then consider that at that time. So there's no further discussion. I'll put the motion to. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. So, Councillor Oliver,
You just beat me to the gun there a little bit, but I don't know. I just sort of think this is an event that's been going on for quite some time, and the Josses have always been very good to us with Australia Day and stuff like that. This is going to complicate their operations and their plan and their setup and everything. And I just looked at we didn't give anything last year, so we were in front that $600 odd or $700 odd there. So
you're quite welcome, Councillor Oliver, to move an amendment.
Well, I will move an amendment just to see how it goes anyway, but we'll revert back to the original submission here and proceed to their request.
Okay, so you're moving an amendment to accede to their request, to the original motion. Now, I'm going to go back to the Councillor McLaren, Councillor Bushell. Are you still happy to have your motion stand?
Can I just clarify what that would mean for council? That would mean we would take $675 out of our budget, our donations budget, to cover this.
And yeah, well, there wouldn't be anything for the recreation ground, would there? Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So you're happy for the motion, your original motion to stand, Councillor Bushell? And is there a seconder for the amendment that Councillor Oliver is putting that we accede to the original request? Councillor Irvine, thank you. Seconding the motion.
I'll second that motion of Councillor Oliver.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So, councillors, we have the original motion that Councillor McLaren and Councillor Bushell have moved, that council makes representation to the Big River Entertainment with the view of being restructured so it can be considered under the Reconnecting New South Wales Community Events Program. And then there is an amendment moved by Councillor Oliver and Councillor Irvine that council accedes to the request, which would in effect mean a $675 donation from council. So, the Deputy Mayor.
I'd be happy to go with that if it was a 50%. That was my thoughts all along, that council donate or provide a 50% of the request, like the cost of the request to them.
Yep. Thank you. Councillor Good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My thoughts are that this is not an amendment. It's really a rescission motion of the first motion, because it's the opposite of what we've moved in the first motion. So I don't know whether we can actually have an amendment to a motion once it's been passed.
The motion hasn't been passed.
I thought it had been passed.
Well, I hadn't put it. No. So now I'm going back to Councillor Oliver in relation to the amendment.
I just want to speak on it, Mr. Mayor. Thank you. I agree with the Deputy Mayor, 50%, but that's essentially what we're doing, because we didn't give anything last year and we're going to give full tote odds this year. So that, to me, adds up to a 50% donation for both years. I mean, it's very high.
Nice try.
But anyway, that's on.
So Councillor Oliver and Councillor Councillor Oliver and Councillor Irvine, you're leaving your amendment as is, not 50%. Councillor Irvine.
Yeah, and if I can just speak on that, it is it isn't going to tick the boxes to go into the funding model. It is going to put a burden on the organisation to go through the process, and they're not going to restructure it. We are, as a council, and our donations budget is, we've had a number of events moved for application into the fund. So I think our donations budget may have the capacity to handle this, and it is a big draw card for the town, and it's realistically fairly minimal cost.
Thank you, Councillor Irvine. I go to Councillor McLaren.
I'm happy to withdraw my original motion.
Okay, thank you. As Councillor Bushell, you're right. Okay, thank you. So Councillor McLaren and Councillor Bushell have withdrawn their original motion in relation to making representation to Big River about restructuring, the potential of restructuring their event to comply for the community events funding. So that now is withdrawn. So we go to the original, back to a motion that we have from Councillor Oliver and Councillor Irvine, that council accedes to the request. If there's no further amendment or discussion, I'm going to put the original, I'm going to further discussion before I
Yeah.
put it? Councillor Oliver?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just as I said before, because we didn't give it last year, because of it, and this is, and yeah, as I said, because it wasn't, didn't happen last year, so essentially it is a 50% donation, but it's some of the money from last year that would have been 50% anyway, so thank you, that's all I've got to.
Right, thank you. Councillor McLaren?
And my only concern was making sure that our events program was fully subscribed to not send any back.
Yeah, no. Thank you, Councillor McLaren, and I think all of us in the chamber know what the motion was trying to achieve from you and Councillor Bushell, so thank you very much. And I think all of us know that this is a great event, we're all aware of it, and we want to support it, and it's just the manner in which we choose to do so. So I'm going to put the motion to you that Councillor Oliver and Councillor Irvine have that council accedes to the request. All those of that opinion, please say aye. To the contrary, no. I declare the motion carried. Thank you very, very much. No urgent late correspondence from the General Manager, please?
No, Mr Mayor.
No, thank you. Let's go to page 218. We do not have any notices of motion. We now go to urgent business without notice, and I go to Councillor Bushell. All clear? Thank you. Councillor Good, happy? Councillor Irvine, you're happy? Councillor Judd? Thank you. Councillor McLaren, business without notice.
Just wondering whether the Director of Environmental Services could give us an update on the pool refurbishment and whether there's been any time delays with respect to the wet weather or any budgetary implications. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McLaren. I'll go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Thanks for the question, Councillor McLaren. Everything's going really well. Did an inspection today on the steel reinforcements, so they're doing their first of 3 pours tomorrow. So yes, there has been a couple of delays with the wet weather, but I don't think it's going to impact the end date. So progressing really well. The Merthyr product is at the docks in Sydney. So once that is transported out here in the shipping containers, it'll be ready for install. So you're progressing really well. Did find some asbestos pipes at the bottom of the walls, which we had to remove. So we're still waiting to find out budget implications, which I will report to council. But yeah, so far so good.
Thanks very much for that.
Thank you, Councillor McLaren. Thank you, Mr Director. Anything further, Councillor McLaren? Thank you. Councillor Oliver.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Just had a report from a couple of users of Gummers Lane in regard to the Collins Creek crossing. With the heavy rains we've had, apparently there's a fairly severe erosion taken place. So I'm just wondering if we could have a little bit of a look and see if that can be fixed or if it's necessary to fix. Thanks, Rob.
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. The engineer will take that on notice, the engineer.
Oh, I might ask the Director of Finance what she thinks.
Anyway.
We'll have a look at
Say, which crossing was it?
No, we're got zero budget, of course, but we'll have a look, and if it really needs attending to, we'll do it before the end of the financial year. We've actually got some flood, natural disaster repair money that is dedicated to Gummers, and I'm sure that causeway, so yeah, we'll see what we can do.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Engineer. Yeah, the complaints weren't in relation to the road itself, it was just that particular crossing, so it's probably a relatively cheap fix. I'm not too sure exactly, but and it mightn't be as bad as it's made out to be as well, so I'm not too sure. Thanks, Rob.
Thank you. Councillor Reinhold. Yes. Happy? Thank you. The Deputy Mayor. Happy? Councillors, just to remind you of the housing workshop, of course, on next Monday, which most important session. And of course, a reminder of our Red Shield appeal that's on the weekend of the 28th and 29th. And Councillor Judd, thank you. Rotary gave us a cheque for $1,000 today, which we're just tickled pink with and coupled with all the other donations we've already received even before the appeal is very heartwarming. And the great thing is that it all stays in the Temora zone. It does not leave. It's banked at the Westpac Bank here and stays here to be invested in our people that really, really need a helping hand. And also, just to formally acknowledge every single volunteer during this week, National Volunteers Week, and it is a special time that we should acknowledge, and I know that we have done and continue to do, and I know all of us in this chamber and out in our Shire community, in most cases, everybody volunteers to give to others and to help make this place even stronger. And I love the quote in relation to volunteers, that is that there's nothing stronger than the heart of a volunteer, and how true it is. So to all of you here in the chamber that give to others freely, and to our Shire community, and we do extend a very warm thank you. Now, there's no further, yes, I go to Councillor Reinhold.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Sorry, when you mentioned Volunteers Week, yes, Karen Davidson down at the community centre clocked over 10 years of volunteering. So they had a morning tea, and yeah, I just thought I'd put that out there. Thank you.
That's terrific. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. Well done to the community centre for acknowledging, as I know some other groups have done, acknowledging volunteers during this Volunteers Week. It's something I know that Council are looking at ways and options that we can recommend to Council that we can do it as well in a broad sense. But yeah, certainly Mrs Davidson certainly gives a great deal in her quiet, unassuming way. Councillor Reinhold?
And I believe the scones were very good.
Yeah, great. Yeah, no, that's terrific. Well, the invitation's still in the mail, I'm sure. Thank you very much. Councillors, let's move on to page 219, the Council's information paper. A motion to receive that information paper, please. Thank you, Councillor Good. Councillor Judd. Moved and seconded. Is there further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those of that opinion, please say aye. The contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Thank you. Councillors, any items out of the information paper? Actually, Councillors, I'll go to Councillor Oliver first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. I just noticed on page 221, the building approvals. This is something I always keep an eye on. It's rather low this time, and I'm just wondering whether that's a result of the high demand for builders at the moment, or is it just a bit of a lull in proceedings?
Thanks, Councillor Oliver. I'll go to the Director of Environmental Services.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of both, but I've got a full tray at the moment for this month, so it's picking right back up. And plus, we're still waiting for those blocks in the new estates to be developed as well too. So we've been dealing with a lot of people preparing to make applications for those as well too. So,
thank you, Councillor. Defer your attention to page 225. Down the bottom of it says the funding deficit, and the Director of Administration and Finance would like to tease that out a bit further for you. The Director.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So it's reporting a 2.9 million deficit, or unrestricted funds in deficit. The main cause of that is we've got over $4 million worth of grant funding owing to us. The main culprit is the airport. So we haven't received any funds at all from the funding body this year for all the work we've done. That's $2.1 million that we've spent and haven't been reimbursed for. And the reason for that was the project's been extended. The timeframes have been extended, so they had put off. We were to make the final claim with the final acquittal, but now the final acquittal's not due till July, so they've given us the opportunity now to make a claim. So that $2 million will come in shortly. There's a couple of other funding programs, local roads, community infrastructure, rounds 1, 2 and 3, 700,000 altogether, close to 8. And then the RMCC state roads work, we've got nearly 800,000 owing to us for that. So it's just the nature of the funding at the moment, predominantly. Like our reserves still could be higher, but they are probably healthier than what it appears in the report, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Madam Director. Just that I'm sure I wouldn't be the only one when I looked at it nearly had coronary, and the director soon calmed me down to an extent anyway with those words she's just shared. So thank you. Anything further in the report? The information paper, impressive to see our community going very well with the rates on a par with last year. It's yeah, we're very, very, very proud of our community for doing that. Nothing further? If not, in accordance with Section 10A of the Local Government Act 1993, I advise that there are several matters that are considered confidential, and accordingly I require a motion to have those matters considered. Thank you, Councillor Reinhold. The Deputy Mayor moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. Declare the motion carried. Resume into open council, and I advise that the following motions have been brought forward from closed session into open session. On the motion of Councillor Reinhold and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, Council moved into confidential at 5:20 p.m. Minutes of the Assets and Operations Committee held on 10th of May 2022 on the motion of Councillor McLaren and Councillor Oliver. It was resolved that the reports be received. The motion is carried. The motion of Councillor Good and the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted. The motion was carried. Minutes of the Economic Development and Visitations Committee held on the 10th of May 2022 on the motion of Councillor McLaren and Councillor Good. It was resolved that the reports be received and the motion was carried. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that the reports and recommendations as presented be adopted and the motion was carried. EPA non-compliance, on the motion of Councillor Oliver and Councillor Good, it was resolved that Council noted the report and the motion was carried. Bob Aldridge Park amenities building tender on the motion of Councillor Bushell and Deputy Mayor Councillor Sinclair, it was resolved that Council 1 award the contract for the construction of the Bob Aldridge amenities building to Crawford's building Temora, and further that unsuccessful tenderers be advised of this decision, and that motion was carried. Information for Council Caravan Parks on the motion of Councillor Oliver and Councillor Reinhold, it was resolved that Council note the report and the motion was carried. Air Park Estate expansion on the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Bushell, it was resolved that Council delegate the authority council officers to negotiate a purchase between the low and the very high range. The motion was carried. On the motion of the Deputy Mayor, Councillor Sinclair, and the second of Councillor Oliver, it was resolved that Council moves the motions from closed business into open council, and that motion also was carried. On the motion of Councillor Good and Councillor Bushell, it was resolved that Council moves out of closed session and into open council at 6:42 p.m. May I have a motion, please, that those resolutions are adopted? Councillor Oliver, Councillor McLaren, moved and seconded. All those of that opinion, please say aye. Contrary, no. I declare that motion carried. Thank you very much. Councillors, there being no further business, I do thank you very, very much. The General Manager, you have some urgent business?
Just for advice, the Audit Office put out a report on the Aboriginal land issue, and it might be, if anyone's interested, I don't know, some people have got an interest in it, look that up, because what it did show was that at the current rate of clearance, and I know Rob appreciates this, I'm going through that process at the moment, but it'll take 22 years to clear the backlog of Aboriginal land claims. So it's really is a system that's broken. It's quite an interesting report if anyone's interested.
Thank you. That's in between all the other reading that you're all doing. But thank you, Mr. General Manager. It is a major issue for the government. But understand when we were in Parliament last week, they were looking at how they can remedy that. There being no further business before Council, I thank councillors and staff for their attendance and their input, and I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.